Surveillance and censorship, two things that university staff members and students are facing all over the country for sharing their pro-Palestine views on campus, whether that be at film screening events, peaceful protests with guest speakers, or even just discussing the matter during a tutorial. A new preliminary report from the People's Inquiry was just released, outlining over 150 submissions from university staffs and students across Australia. The report aims to look into the state of free speech and academic freedom rights across the country. The submissions detail how over 20 universities have been disciplining people for voicing their pro-Palestinian views, and the way in which universities have been gathering this information. I spoke to the National Union of Students Education Officer James McVicar to get a deeper understanding of what was said in these 150 submissions, and just what this report aims to achieve in the near future.
Well, I sort of helped to convene the panel that is reviewing the submissions that we've received from campuses across Australia. I was one of the people who sort of initiated the project, um, and I'm on the panel as well, so helping to analyze our submissions, put together reports,
Yeah.
trying to generate some media interest as well. Like that, I think the thing with people's inquiries is that they really kind of count on there being some publicity. That's the sort of thing I think that unis kind of respond to. And in terms of perspective, I mean, so I'm the education officer with the National Union of Students. So my position is all about standing up for students' rights.
Yeah.
That's what I think student union should be about, and I think that extends to students' rights to express themselves freely, to engage in political activity on campus. I mean, I've personally been targeted at my university, so I study at RMIT, and have personal experience of being targeted by the university for pro-Palestine activism. So I guess I bring a bit of lived experience to it as well.
It's common practice in most universities for lectures to be recorded, whether that's for online students or merely for people to watch the class at a later date. However, in some unis, this common practice that people usually don't think too much about was being used to spy on what was being said in class discussions between staff and students.
One of the submissions we mentioned actually related to a teacher, a lecturer, who was, brought into a meeting and presented with evidence from her own lecture recordings, from their own lecture recordings, including, recordings of just discussions with students. So not even the content of the lecture, but just discussion time was presented with this and asked to explain it. And of course, it's because they were talking about Palestine. So the idea that universities are using this equipment essentially to spy on their staff and students and monitor what they're saying, I think is pretty chilling. And yeah, that it's not an isolated example. There was a pretty high profile example at Melbourne Uni where the university was using their Wi-Fi usage, students' Wi-Fi usage to track and to confirm that they were participating in a protest and like target them on that basis. The title of our preliminary report, Palestine's a Curricula, was a quote taken from one of the submissions, where a staff member at UQ was told that basically by a senior academic that don't talk about. And this was an academic who worked in like the human rights space and stuff and had written about other countries and human rights abuses and stuff from what I understand. And had just been told, this was a couple of years ago. Palestine's a curricula. If you talk about Palestine, you're not going to go anywhere.
Although the focus of this report is on the free speech surrounding Palestine, we are starting to see this issue bleed out into other sectors of university life. For example, universities are using their policies to impact how staff and students are speaking on other topics such as course cuts or other political issues in the world currently.
We've already seen examples of that. I heard from some students at QUT who were hosting a forum about course cuts, cuts that are coming through at their university, were basically asked to submit the content of their speeches to the university for approval, basically, because the university doesn't agree that what they are doing is cuts or something, something like that. And there were students at Swinburne University in Melbourne who were doing a poll asking people who they hated more out of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And the university, they were told by a security guard that they had to take down that poll because it was inciting hatred. It's empowering university administrations to basically decide what constitutes harmful speech or action and things like that can just very obviously strengthen their hand against any sort of speech that they don't want to happen. And that becomes really relevant when you're talking about things like, yeah, I mean, really any sort of political speech, but campaigns around course cuts and staff cuts and things like that. What I would like to see is every student and staff member who was put through a disciplinary hearing, students who've been expelled or suspended. I think all of those disciplinary hearings and expulsions and suspended need to be rescinded. I think, universities should scrap all of the new policies that they've introduced and guarantee to students and staff that they have the right to express themselves freely, engage in political activity on campus,